This podcast is a conversation by Julie Benetti and Susan Barbaro and is a production of VI Alliance, copyright 2019. And this chart-busting hit, Alone Leave Me, courtesy of New Threads, is available everywhere. Okay, I'm here with Susan. This is Julie, and we are talking about energy, because we're always talking about energy. We're always working with energy. We're always considering energy. And now we're going to collaborate it with working with your mind. So
I'm excited.
So we have other podcasts where we talk about energy out there, whether it be in the political realm, and where we talk about ancient texts and how energy is talked about and your mind is talked about.
And how this is not a new concept. I mean, that's the idea of the ancient text too, is we're bringing it to a space of today.
Right, and of course our well-known podcast on the Kabbalion that we get a lot of feedback on all the time. And what we started to talk about, and of course I said, ooh, this would be a great podcast. So when you learn all of this stuff and you start to utilize it, and again, we're not proponents of the quote-unquote self-help industry. We're looking at self-improvement. And we grow and improve and try to learn and understand and access more and more energy and work with energy and propel into other arenas with working with energy. And so when we access these materials and, you know, the energy of the people who have written these aspects, whether it be investigating your mind or investigating how to work with energy, we always come down to, okay, so you're working with your mind, yet you're stuck. Oftentimes, just the generic person is stuck with numerous beliefs and ideas and comprehensions and suggestions. And you really have to find a way to clear all of those.
Well, it's funny, as you're saying this, I'm thinking, what do I really believe? Because, I can only say what I can say if I really believe it. And so to add to what you're saying, number one, I do believe we all come here with this ability. And when you talk about working with your mind, that's your answer to magic. That's your answer to, the ability to do anything you want to do. It's how much do you really want to work with your mind to do it.
Right.
And, I'm a proponent of constantly challenging myself, putting myself in situations like, how would I get out of this? And not in a bad way. I don't set myself up, but like, can I do this? And other people can do it. Of course I can do it. I'm sure there's not a person alive that wouldn't have a statement that they did something and like, how the heck did you do it? I don't know, but somehow it worked out. And I really believe that we all have that ability. And when it comes down to, magic, and it's funny because we could talk about witchcraft, we could talk about working with nature, you can talk about any of that stuff. It really all comes down to one ability that everybody, it was, again, we were talking about Joseph Murphy, and one of the things that he said is the stuff that is really the most important to us was free. We didn't have to pay to have this ability. It doesn't matter if you're rich or you're poor, pretty, tall, small, whatever. We all have that.
And the ability is working with your mind.
Right, to do whatever you want to do.
And whether it be, what you're telling yourself, what your thoughts are, where you're propelling or not propelling from them, it's still working with your mind. And there's numerous materials out there that can share or suggest or kind of put you along that forefront, and set you on that path if you're willing to do the work.
Well, the funny thing is as you're thinking that, I'm thinking about the, millennials and the younger generation, that there are really a lot of brilliant kids out there. They're very creative, they're smart, engineers, everything. Yet, I think a lot of them believe, and this is from what I see out there, that money is everything. That money is the tell-all of whether you're successful or not. And, I'm a little wary about going into the space of, well, you're going to make a lot of money and you've got it, because that really isn't the answer to anything. It's a piece. It's like being healthy.
Right.
It's about having good relationships. It's a piece, but it's not the one thing. And I think a lot of people, and I hate to make generalizations like this, but I think that there's a piece that's missing with the millennials. They're, like I said, you see these young kids coming in, running companies, making multi-millions of dollars, creating. I mean, you see on TV the commercials, all these people that are creating these companies, and they're all young people, which is wonderful. Yet I think there's a piece that's missing. There's an underlying thing. There's a different way of looking at things, and they're using their mind in one aspect, which is great. But I think there's a whole other side that's not being expressed.
Right, and I think the gist of part of what you're saying, but also I'd like to say, is that you can't kind of buy your mind. I mean, you can't use money to, I mean, it's there. It's there for you to use, for you to access, for you to work with and strengthen and be a collaborator with. And, it doesn't take money to do that. And it doesn't take wealth to do that. I mean, it takes a strength, a courage, and understanding and awareness, and kind of just the desire to get into that space. And I think what you were saying about the millennials,
I think they want to. I'm not looking at them and saying, oh, something's wrong with them. I think they feel that, and I don't want to say need, but that yearning, not to use a George Costanza from Seinfeld. I think there's a yearning that they want to open up this side. And I don't think anybody out there is really offering that. It's all about going out there. Oh, good. Again, you get into the school, you got this name, you start a company, you make millions, you go there, you do all this. And that other piece of it, I think is like they want it. And they have access to it, but no one's showing them how to have access to it.
Right.
This is like a lost art to some degree.
Right.
And we talk about in our Ancient Text podcasts that there are a lot of resources out there, but finding them, unless someone sits there and says, did you see this?
Right.
You don't know it's there. And then, so what do? You go to the psychics. You go to the, quote, witches.
Right.
And you don't realize that we all have that same ability. And one of the things that we started talking about, which really kind of preempted this podcast, was, we sat back and we thought, okay, you clear your head and, you get rid of all these bad thoughts, bad habits, bad things you've said to yourself. And I'm using bad as a, general word. And then it's like, what do you do with that? Where do you go? Like, we can all sit here and say, oh, this, well, you clear this. You do this, well, you clear that. You do this, you clear that. And there's a lot of people who've been victims of certain things, and they get themselves out of it, and then they go work with other victims.
Right.
But the question becomes, and I just saw something the other night, and it's like, are you perpetuating that victimness within you?
Right.
Or are you really moving forward? And that's what we kind of started talking about, is how do you move forward once you've cleared and you've worked through things?
Well, I think an important presence of that clearing is to understand that you have to clear. And if you haven't cleared, oftentimes you go back into the same cycle because it's a habit.
Right.
And so it's a habitual preference and you're used to it and it just occurs and it keeps occurring and you think, well, and that's, we've talked about this before too, that's where you go where, all right, let me go into the self-help section and let me try to work this out and let me try to figure out and oh my gosh.
We think something's wrong.
Right.
We think something, we've made a mistake or we're bad or we did something wrong.
Right.
And now we try, that's psychotherapy too. Okay, let's go back and see what you might have done to create this that you brought. And then people go into past lives and all this other stuff. And I'm not saying you can't have brought something forward from past lives if you want to believe that. And whether or not you do, so is it a time to say, okay, I don't need to carry it forward anymore.
Right. And I think where we were going was, rather than the self-help, it's more self-improvement when you get that access to an aspect of clearing that stuff. So then you can move ahead without carrying that baggage still. And that takes work. It takes work to do that.
So, we talked about this, and I know I'm touching your hand because this is so important. The work that you do initially is work. But it's like a snowball effect. The minute, getting that first snowball big enough and getting it big enough and big enough and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, the minute it starts to roll, it creates its own momentum.
Right.
And the work, it doesn't mean you don't do the work, but now it really does get easier. It really does get easier. Never goes away because, come on. Do you really want it to come out? You want to do the work. It's improvement and challenging yourself. That's the fun of life.
Well, it's funny because you just described that as creating a new habit. So if your habit becomes doing the work rather than going back into that old baggage, guess what? You just keep on clearing naturally. You're creating an automatic habit for yourself.
Right.
You keep clearing and you keep moving. And what do you move to? And how do you clear, is the first thing. And then what do you move into? And then where do you go from there? And
that's completely different, because that does not say what happened to you. You were a victim. And we've said this. We've had other podcasts with things where, if someone was a victim, we're not minimizing that you were, but it's not about remaining a victim. It's whatever occurred, you're here now. Move to another space of it. And if you're still being victimized, it's time to end it. That's where empowerment comes in, like, no more. I get whatever happened. I'm moving forward.
Right.
And that's a determination. It's I'm going to say it. It's easy to fall back into, this is what occurred, or I had this, or whatever, but it doesn't really help. It really doesn't help you. It's about taking that and learning and saying, I'm who I am today because of everything that occurred in my past. And I'm who I am today. I have to like who I am today.
Right.
And you move forward.
And that gives you a lot of freedom. And it gives you freedom to work with the energy and work with the power of your mind. And in that sense, again, it's not self-help. It's self-improvement. It's like we've reiterated this, in another podcast. It's like working in a sport and challenging yourself to get better and better and better. And not looking at life as a sport, but, it is, like you said, a challenge. And you're improving. It's not that there's something wrong with you. Exactly. It's not that there's something wrong and you have to help that part and minister to it, and minister to everybody else, because now you think you've helped it. Because you get stuck in all the baggage again. So again, it's, the necessity of clearing, and then, what do you do with that, and how do you enhance where you're going and how you're moving, and where you propel from there.
And, we have this conversation because we've done the work. We worked really hard. And we sort of came up with, I'm going to say it, I haven't said this, I don't think, in any of the other podcasts. I mean, we did the work, we wrote the book that we wrote, but it came from someplace else. I mean, I sometimes we even read it and think, did we say that? Did we say that? It's Energetic Invocations, a book of vibrational change. And it actually became a process that we went through. We worked through it together. And it really helped to clear a lot of things. And then we sat back and we said, okay, we've cleared all this. How do we live now? That became our question. Once you clear all these bad habits and these thoughts that didn't serve you, we said, how do we live?
Right.
And so we came up with our own way. We created a character. We called her Endra. And we kind of learned through her. Again, we wrote these plays. And we sometimes it was kind of interesting how it came together, because we didn't sit down and say, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
We had thoughts and we kind of played with it. And they kind of almost, the stories wrote themselves. But when we go back now, when we read the stories, it's like, oh. And then, of course, we now have a podcast in our ancient texts. And another great book was The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, which helped us to plant the seeds for working with our subconscious mind. We created our own new habit of not feeding our mind with the old garbage that didn't serve us.
Right. So working in partnership with our subconscious, where our conscious is mindful, not to overuse that term, but is aware of the words and the reactions and the suggestions and whatever we're absorbing through our subconscious, which is bringing things to play
from the old stuff. Because when you go through, we talk about charity, we talk about health, we talk about people, relationships, storylines, everything that's been given, and we work through all of that to say, whoa, who knew? And it's not just, oh wow, look what happened to me, or wow, look what happened to Julie. It happens to all of us every day.
And that's the beautiful part about it, because it's not laden with any story. There's nothing hidden under there with any, it's not your story, it's not my story. We collaborated and we said, let's just make a process.
Right.
And Energetic Invocations, a book of vibrational change, includes that whole high octane, I say, process, because the feedback we've gotten is this is intense energy.
Right.
And it moves us and propels us. And when we did the Energetic Invocations series, volumes 1 to 17, it includes little stops to take a breather and give you some kind of suggestion of how this relates out there in the world, with funny examples, with interesting examples spread throughout the book.
And then, real examples.
Real examples, right. Real examples.
But it was through that helped us to understand what is being said when Joseph Murphy talks about all the things that occur that suggest power of suggestion and all this other stuff. We were able to take it to a very real example to today's life.
Right.
And ways of looking at it, because things didn't make sense. And once we understood, this is what we've been fed all these years. And we said, not anymore. And then it's like, okay, well, what do we do? And again, then Joseph Murphy's book fit in perfect.
Right.
Because it's like, this is what you want to do. Oh.
And it's even more powerful than it is than if you're reading it and you have all that baggage and you attempt everything and you get stuck in your same rituals and cycles. And without all that, when you take all that away and you've cleared all that, and then you have, it's like a clear blackboard. But, you clear it all, the blackboard is clean, guess what? You start fresh and you just keep moving.
Well, I equate it to people that go on these retreats and people that go even on vacation, they go and they clear everything and life's good again. And even if they do the work, then they come back and they go right back to the old habits.
Right.
And people that go to certain retreats and they take all these classes, and I think you told me, or I read that someone goes to Tony Robbins. We read like every 6 months. It's like, what?
Yeah, I know.
What are you doing? You go and he clears you, and then what happens? You got to go back 6 months later. It's not supposed to work that way. You go, if it's him, whoever it is, whoever your quote guru is, if they help you, but then you're supposed to do the work because only you can clear it.
Right.
And then you come back, and then you're like, okay, then you can move into this other space. Because if you are not very clear about what you feed yourself when you come back to quote life, and and the other thing that you and I have forgotten is that when we were writing the book, we kept saying, be just so easy, just go live on the side of a mountain.
Yeah, I know.
Leave here and get away from everybody and just go live on the side of a mountain. I kept saying, do you think we could do it? What if we sold everything and just left everybody and we went up there? But energy was not in alignment with that, and we're still here, and you still get your life and your family, and I still got my life and I got my family, and we've got everything around. We've got great families. We both have great families. I'm not complaining at all about that. What I mean by that is, so we're back here and doing what we have to do, because it wasn't set up for us to go and live on the side of a mountain and be a monk and preach.
Right.
We have to work through this.
Right.
That's where we are. That's how it's been planted for us, and we're sharing.
Right. And that's a great example, because when you go to a retreat, and I've gone to retreats.
Yeah, I haven't.
And I've been, I've gone to lots of different things, and it's always research.
Yeah.
And I've gone to ones where, you're in this beautiful landscape and people are sitting out there in lawn chairs going, I'm really enjoying this. And I'm thinking, don't you have a yard? You can sit out in the back, or a park, or a balcony you just look off of, and can't you enjoy it every day? And that's something, and that's not a judgment towards anyone, but that's what I say to myself. Why can't I enjoy this presence and this presence of mind and the energy and the power that's accessible every moment from my mind every day?
Because I think of it as like going and getting a massage or doing yoga. And I'm not trying to judge, but a massage feels great. And sometimes you need it. But if you don't do the work in between, you just sit back and you don't do anything, and then you go get another massage, you're not doing the work. I'm just giving the example of yoga. Then you stretch out, you work on yourself. Then when you go to get another massage, you're moving even further. They're not keep moving with the same blockages. And I just think that's important for people to know, that there is a point out there where you can work with everything that you've got to work with. There's so much resources and things that you can use, and at the end of the day, it really is all within you.
Right.
It's just, they're all things that can help you. You got to do the work.
Right. And there's so much to access. it's all you. And isn't that cool? It's all you. It's not related to gurus. It's not related to coaches. Sure, you can find whatever books you want to find, everything, that can help you and assist you and be a tool in your process and what you want to do, yet it's all you.
Thank you for listening to this production from EI Alliance. Check out our Amazon authors pages for books and podcasts. Find New Threads music and their latest album on iTunes, Spotify, and newthreads.us.